it's Mo. It is September, which means that it is Shorty September. And for Shorty September, I want to do something a little different. A lot of times I talk about every short book on my TBR. So a short book to me is 250 and less. But because Novella November is coming up, I try to reserve novellas, which I consider novels, under 175. So 175 pages and below I consider a novella. In Shorty September, I really like to read short books that are novels from 176 to 250 or any other kind of short books. So obviously Novella November, you're supposed to read novels, novellas. In Shorty September, you can read nonfiction, you can read comics, you can read poetry, you can read plays, you can read whatever else you might want to read. So for this year, for Shorty September, I decided to just grab a pile of books, the first several books that struck my fancy, and go over some of the ones that I want to read. So these were books, my pile of books that I've been wanting to read for a while. I briefly looked at all my TBR shelves and I've made a pile. Some of them I bought kind of recently too, so I think that will be fun. Some of them are novels, some of them are not novels, but we're going to go through them in just a minute. But if you haven't heard of Shorty September, this was started by Pastorytime, who is not doing it this year. I will leave their channel listed down below. They're amazing and I love that channel. I miss them, so I hope they do come back soon. But some of the people who also ran Shorty September in the past have come to create this again. Heather, I can't remember Heather's channel name, so I will also leave her link below. And then a bunch of new people are participating in Shorty September this year as well. And Shorty September is all about reading short books for the month of September. And they also have a bunch of fun prompts that all have to do with shorts. So there's like booty shorts and rock and roll shorts and a bunch of other shorts. I did not pull that list for this particular video because I didn't think about what any of these books might fit into. So I think what I'm going to do is at the end of Shorty September, I'm going to go over the books that I read with the prompts. But like I said, I will leave the announcement video this year and that has the prompts in it so you can look up. There's also a tag going around, so maybe during Shorty September I will do that tag, or maybe when I come back at the end of the month I will do that Shorty September tag. I did see Erin read a book, or Erin read a book, do the Shorty September tag, and I did really like it, so I might end up doing that as well. But for now, I just wanted to go over this totally random pile of possibilities, this huge list of possible books that I might read. And then at the end, I want to talk about one more aspect to this video and the next Shorty September video that I want to talk to you about. So let's go first with Offshore by Penelope Fitzgerald. So this was the winner of the Booker Prize, or she was the winner of the Booker Prize. I think she also won for The Bookshop, which is a book that I read by her earlier this year. And this book follows a group of people who live in riverboats, and specifically like one mom and her daughters, and how other people kind of relate to her, how all the people living in this dock situation of riverboats live. I have already read this. This is why I wanted to start with this. So I did read this in the beginning of the month. I started on the first and I finished it on the second. It's very, very short. I read this book on audio. I really enjoyed it. You can look for my September wrap up to hear like more of my full thoughts on this. But overall, I would say that if you're interested at all in people living on the fringes, people living in different areas, then I would definitely recommend this one. Also, I would recommend this for people who like stories that are not entirely like happy. From what I can tell from what I've read of Penelope Fitzgerald, she writes very slice of life books, but that means that it's not always a happy ending. That means that not everyone comes out pristine in the end. So I really like that about her. There's something very organic about the way she writes and the way she moves from character to character that I really enjoy. Even though her descriptions are not cinematic, I feel like the way that her prose flows is very cinematic. So I could see her books being made into movies, and I believe The Bookshop was. I'm not sure if this one was. This one is 181 pages, so fits right in that shorty range. A book that I picked up very, very recently, I did get it from a bad website, but I just couldn't resist, is MacArthur's Bloody Butchers, Company G, 163rd Infantry Regiment in the Pacific War by Brian Bruce. Brian Bruce is a booktuber. His booktube channel is called Bookish, and he wrote this book and published it last year, and so I really wanted to pick it up, and I kind of put off picking up because I thought it was going to be a really big, dry military history, and it probably is a dry military history, but I had no idea it was so tiny until it came into my house. So I'm super excited that this one fits for Shorty September, and I definitely want to try to get to this one. It looks like this one is like 184 pages without all the reference and everything. So very short, perfect for Shorty September, and I am excited to read this. I think I am going to start reading this one quite soon, like maybe even today. A book that I've had on my TBR for quite a while and that I love the cover of is Double Blind by Edward St. Alban. This is an Irish author, I believe. I don't really know anything about him, but I do know that he has another book coming out, I think this year. I'm just interested in his books. His books sound like interesting premises to me, but I have held off on picking them up because I haven't yet read Double Blind. So this is going to be the next book that I read on audio, and this book comes in at 239 pages. No clue what it's about. A perfect book for Shorty September, even though it's much shorter than 250 pages, much shorter than 175 pages, is Poor Richard's Almanac by Benjamin Franklin. I picked this book up mostly because it's a Peter Popper Press book, and I love Peter Popper Press books, but then I thought that this would be an interesting book to read too. But it's not strictly a novel. It's more like kind of good little advice and things. It feels like an almanac. It feels like little things that you're supposed to know or learn or take to heart. And I don't really know what it's concerning, if it's just concerning all of life or what, but I think this would be a fun one to pick up. And perfect because it's not a novel, so it's not good for Novella November. Another very pretty book that I got recently, and that is very short, is Ruby Ayet of Omar Khayyam of Naishapur, illustrated by Charles Stewart, and this was translated or reimagined by Edward Fitzgerald. Another Fitzgerald. This, I believe, is like an epic poem reimagined, so I think, again, this is a good one to read for Shorty September because it's not a novella, even though it's very short, and it does have illustrations which are really pretty. I don't know what it's about. It's an Indian myth or legend or parable or something, and I'm excited to get to it. Another book that I'm going to read shortly on audio is Castle for Rent by Dawn DeChancy. This is a fantasy portal book. I've read many of these throughout my life. I used to love the castle books, the first being Castle Perilous, where we meet a group of characters who stumble upon Castle Perilous that is a portal castle. So it is a castle in a world that connects to other world by portals. Castle for Rent is the second in the series, and this is going to be a reread for me, but I haven't read the castle books since I was like a teenager or in my early 20s, so I'm excited to read more in this series. Like I said, I already read Castle Perilous at the end of last year or the beginning of this year. Going along the lines of some shorty books that are not novels, I'm going to try and read Cowboy Bebop. This is a manga. I read Spy Family earlier this year, and so I'm interested in reading some more true mangas, and I think Cowboy Bebop is a very well-known comic and something that I would like to try my hand at. I don't know how many pages this is. At almost 250 pages, we also have The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Osserberg. This is a more contemporary YA sapphic love story about a woman, a girl and a mermaid, and I want to read this one. I don't love the art, so I've kind of been putting it off, but Shorty September, perfect time. And then one that I actually bought new, which I never buy books new, but I saw in a new local record and comic book shop, which I will leave listed down below. It's called Unwind Records, and it's right on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, is Yon and Moo, Junjo Ito's Cat Diary. And I've never read any Junjo Ito, but I've always seen some of the images from this comic and really enjoyed them. And this is a fictional story but based on real tales about Junjo Ito's cats, and I just love it so much, and I really want to read this one. Not a graphic novel, but kind of a strange book, I think, is going to be Slade House by David Mitchell. I've never read any David Mitchell. He's most well known for Cloud Atlas, but this I think is a mystery and it takes place in a house. The premise reminds me of the house mysteries that I've been reading, which are Japanese translated mysteries. So there's the Decagon house, the Labyrinth house, etc., etc. And I think this has something to do similar to that, where it has kind of different aspects of a house and a mystery. And it's such a cute, weird little book. So I would definitely like to read this one. Another non-comic but unconventional book is Gender Stories, which is actually a zine. It's the Gender Stories issue of the Bandit zine. A friend gave me this one and I've been wanting to pick it up and I just haven't, but I think Shorty September is the perfect time. This has poetry, this has essays, this has stories, artwork, this has photographs. So I think this would be like a great time to pick this one up. Another non-novel type book, definitely it is nonfiction, but it is also a book of artwork, is this little Egon Schiele book I got recently at a book sale, and it definitely has some information about Egon Schiele's life. I recently just watched Great Art Explained, which is one of my all-time favorite YouTube channels, do a Egon Schiele episode. And so I thought it might be a nice time to read this little book. It doesn't have a ton of words in it. It is mostly pictures, but I think, again, for Shorty September, the little beginning part that's nonfiction would be really cool to read. Another weird book with not much writing in it is The Marriage of Heaven and Hell by William Blake. So I have been wanting to read this partly because of how William Blake intersects with other fictional books like Red Dragon. I've read other books in the not so distant past that also talk about William Blake, and this is his illustrated work. So it is really interesting. There's also a lot of nudity where it is his artwork and his writing in his own handwriting, and you kind of have to read it all together. This is a very tiny version of it. I wish I had a bigger version of it so you could see both the artwork and the words more clearly, but I think it would be cool to read this one. Oh, and I just realized I didn't see this in the back, but it actually has every page also written out. So you can read it in the back and reference the pictures in the front. So this one would be a really good one to read. Then we have two young adult novels. I could read these in Novella November because they are just short novels, but we have Owls in the Family by Fairleigh Mowat. And I really want to read this because I love Fairleigh Mowat's nonfiction writing, but I think this one would be super fun. And then we also have Sudoku and the Thousand Paper Cranes. This would be a reread for me. I'm sure I've read this one before, but I've had this one on my shelves forever, and I just don't read a lot of young adult or middle grade books. I think these are probably both middle grade, so these would be two short ones to get off of my shelves. Okay, then we have some short stories. I've got The Ballad of Sad Cafe and Other Stories by Carson McCullers. I've never read any Carson McCullers, but I have quite a few books by them, so I would like to get to this. Recently, I picked up Eliza Clark's She's Always Hungry. I was super excited to find this for only $5 because this is a pretty recent release, and I've heard a lot of buzz about it, so I was excited that it was cheap at my local indie used bookstore. And this is a collection of short stories. Perfect for Shorty September. I also have Bluets by Maggie Nelson. This is ruminations or essays or short stories on the color blue. I haven't read any Maggie Nelson yet, but I have a couple of books that would fit into Shorty September. Her books almost all fit into Shorty September, I think, unless they're longer than 250 pages, which I don't know if they are, so this would be a good one to read. I picked up Band by Alice Walker, or Alice Walker Band, which is a collection of essays and I believe short stories. This one I picked up while I was in Arizona. It was the only book that I brought home from Arizona, and I'm super excited to get to this one, even though I don't agree with Alice Walker's feelings on transgender people. Speaking of Alice Walker, I also have Meridian, which was her first novel, so maybe I would read this one, but I think I would only read one of these, and I'm leaning towards this one. Another nonfiction that I might pick up is Evelyn Waugh, A Tourist in Africa, and this is a nonfiction about his time in being a tourist in Africa. I love these kinds of books that are fiction writers and different authors writing about like a time in their life or a vacation they went on or some reason that they had to go somewhere. Sometimes books like this are written for a specific cause. I read one by Bill Bryson, which was also somewhere in Africa, I believe, that was like for charity. So he went on the trip, was paid for by the charity, but then he wrote the book, and then the proceeds of the book went to the charity, which I thought was really cool. I also read one similar to that by Jamaica Kincaid, so I would like to get to this one. And then I think we'll talk about just one more book, which is Chuck Tingle's Lucky Day. I picked this one up recently. It is a proof, and it is close to the higher page count, coming in at 228. This is a horror book, and we haven't really had any horror books in here, so I think this could be a good one to get in the mix. And I think this is like a cosmic horror, apocalypse horror type of book, and I'm super excited to get to it. I do have another like 5-6 books on a stack over here, but I think that is plenty for a pile of possibilities. Maybe it's giving you some ideas of the kinds of books that you would want to read for Shorty September. Maybe it's reminded you of some books that you actually have on your shelves. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was, while I am doing Shorty September, I think I'm also going to try to do 30 in 30. So I think I'm going to try and read 30 books in 30 days. I'm going to talk about that in another video, which is one that I've been working on for a while. Last month in August, I thought about doing 31 and 31, but August was really, really busy and there was a lot going on. I think there's going to be a lot going on in September, but because it's Shorty September, and because I feel like on this roll of reading short books already, even though it's only the 3rd, I think I can really accomplish that 30 and 30. I know that past story times suggests you don't do 30 and 30 because it is a lot to read, but I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So when I come back in that next Shorty September video, let's do the tag, talk about our 30 and 30, and talk about some of the books that I actually read for Shorty September. Let me know if you're planning on participating in Shorty September, and let me know if you've read any of the books here. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!